Hello and welcome to this tutorial for users of Microsoft Excel 2016 for the Mac. In this tutorial we're going to start looking at using the if function. And the if function is useful in situations where you want Excel to automatically complete cell content based on information in other parts of the spreadsheet. So let's look at the structure of the if function first of all. You can see this table here breaks it down. The first part of the if function is simply a question, or it's called in Excel terminology a logical test. The second part of the if function is something that's performed if the logical test is true, and the final part of the if function is something that's performed if the logical test is false. So in the example shown here, we're asking a question or testing a value to see if we're sold out of a particular product. If we are sold out, we want to place a piece of text that gives instruction to our ordering department to order more. And if it's false, in other words, we have still got stock of that particular item, then we'll leave a message for the ordering department to say that stock is okay and there's no action required. And in our mini table we have product A, the quantity is currently 0, and next to that we have a stock status message we'd like to present. So let's click into cell D9 then, and that's where we're going to create our if function that's going to put the message into this cell. As with any function in Excel, you begin by pressing the equals key on the keyboard, and that tells Excel that anything that follows will be part of a function or calculation, and just type the word if. You can type it uppercase or lowercase, it doesn't really matter. And you can see here that Excel has presented some suggestions, but I'm going to ignore that for now and carry on. The next thing I need to do is type an open parentheses or open bracket. As soon as I type the open bracket, we also get this overlay of text that guides us through the creation of the if function. This is really useful if ever you forget the particular structure of a function, and it'll help you create the function. So the first thing it wants is the logical test, which, as I said earlier, is basically a question. And the question we have is simply, are we sold out of product A? In other words, is the value in cell C9, the product quantity value, 0? So I need to check that first of all. And to do that, I simply click on the cell where the value is, type equals on the keyboard, and then type 0. So is that value 0? Type a comma, and a comma basically separates the different parts of the function. And the first thing we want to do here, as you can see from the table above, is have an action to occur if that question is true. In other words, if we're sold out, what do we want to have happen? Well, what I want to have happen is the words order more appear in the cell. So I'm going to type order more, and it's between quotation marks, like so, and close the quotation mark as well, of course. So when you want a piece of text to appear as a result of an if function, remember to put that text between quotation marks. If you simply want a number to appear, you don't need to use the quotation marks, so keep that in mind as well. That completes the second part of the function, so type a comma again. And the third and final part of the if function is what would I like to appear in the cell if the question is false. In other words, if we do have stock available, I'd like the words stock okay to appear, so I simply type out again between quotation marks, stock okay. Again, close the quotes, and then close the bracket or parentheses to complete the function. So there is the structure of the if function. It's equals if, and then between parentheses, the three parts of the function. Part 1 is the logical test or the question. Part 2 is what would you like to have happen if the question is true. And thirdly, what would you like to have happen if the question is false. So if I press the enter key now, we should get the result. And see if you can guess what we should have. We get order more because the stock value is 0. So let's go and put some stock in then and see if we get a different result. So we will enter 10 items of stock, press the enter key, and now the result appearing in cell D9 is stock OK. So you see there, the benefit of an if function is that we now have information being automatically presented in a cell based on a value elsewhere, in this case the stock level. So there's the basics of the if function, and let's look at another example now and see how we can apply it in other situations. So if I go to my next worksheet, and this table has some ticket sellers who are selling tickets for Fred's movie shows, and we see the total value of their sales, we see the basic pay that's awarded, and we also have two blank columns here, a bonus award and a bonus amount and total pay. And below that we have this payment guide, and it says basic pay is 15% of the sales value. Well, that's already been calculated, as we can see. And the bonus is 5% of the sales value that hasn't been calculated. And the bonus qualifier, it says, is sales above £500. So my task here is to create the functions that will put those results into the cells. So first of all, let's click into cell D4 then. And I'm going to create an if function here again. So as you know by now, it simply equals if. If you don't need to use the suggestion boxes, by the way, just carry on typing and they'll go away. So if I type the open parentheses now, you'll see I now get the little line of information to help me through the function. So again, my first task here is to create the question or logical test, and I need to work out if the bonus award is applicable first of all. So I need to look at the value of sale in cell B4 in this case and see if it's above £500. So there's my test, which is the value in B4 greater than 500? Type a comma again to separate the different parts of the function, and now we need to have the information that will appear in the cell if this test is true. And I'm simply going to have the word yes appear if that is true. So there we are, yes, and remember, because it's text between quotation marks, type a comma again, and finally I need to have something that appears if the sales are not above 500, and that will be the word no. And again, to complete the function, simply close the parentheses there. So there's the function, is B4 greater than 500? If it is, enter the word yes. If it isn't, enter the word no. So again, I'll just press the enter key, and the word yes appears because the value is indeed above £500, so we can see the function is working. And you can also test the function, so if I take that value below 500, say 495, we can see the text changes to say no. However, I'll just undo that and put the original value back in there, and then come across to cell E4, and this is my next if function. And this if function is going to look at the result of the first if function and calculate the bonus amount. So again, let's type equals to begin, the word if, open parentheses, and so we're going to click on the bonus award cell in D4, and I need to see if that is yes or no. So I type equals, and then between quotation marks the word yes. So I'm testing to see if the text in that box is yes. Type a comma again to separate the different parts of the function, and if it is yes, I need to calculate the bonus. And remember, in my payment guide it says the bonus is 5% of the sales value. So to calculate the bonus, if it applies, is to click on the cell value in B4, multiply on the keyboard, and then simply type 5%. And then type a comma again to separate the parts of the function, and the final part of the function will only apply if the entry in the bonus award cell is no, and the result of that will be 0 bonus. So all I need to do is type in the number 0, close the parentheses again, press the enter key, and we have a positive value appear, so the calculation has been made for Fred. And now let's copy these functions down to the rest of the table and see who's been awarded a bonus and who hasn't. So there we go, just click and drag down to complete that. If you haven't done this before, by the way, you simply put the mouse pointer at the bottom right of that selection, click and drag down, and that will copy the function down to those other cells. And you can see there, if I just click away, you can see more clearly. So we have 3 sellers who have achieved their bonus, and we have 2 that haven't. And you can see the bonus amounts are calculated if the bonus is applicable, and in those cases where it isn't, the cell is left blank or actually contains a 0 value. I'll show you one more example if I come to my third worksheet, and here I'd simply like to compare the prices from these 2 suppliers of holidays and see who has the best price. So we'll come into the cell, we're already in there, D4, type equals on the keyboard. Again, as you know, type if to name the function, open parentheses, and I'm going to click on cell B4. I'm going to take that value first, and I want to see if that value is greater than the value in cell C4. So is Fred's Adventure Holidays more expensive than ABC Holidays? Is my first test or question. Type a comma. Now if the result of that test is that B4 is greater than C4, then obviously the value in C4 is the best price. So the outcome of that will be the content of cell C3, which is the name ABC Holidays. And that's another way you can get text into the result of an if function, is simply have that text in another cell and link to it through the function. Type a comma again. And finally, if ABC Holidays isn't the best price, then logically Fred's Adventure Holidays must be the best price. So there's my function. Is B4 greater than C4? And if it is, then ABC Holidays is the best price. So take the text content of cell C3. And if that's not true, then take the text content of B3, which is Fred's Adventure Holidays, of course. Now if I close the parentheses, press the Enter key, you'll see we get ABC Holidays. But if Fred comes along and does an amazing deal and changes his price to $19.99, press the Enter key, then he suddenly becomes the person with the best price. Now before I copy the function down to the other cells, I just need to make a couple of changes, and it's important to keep this in mind for your functions, is that if you're referencing cells and you're going to be copying the formula down, remember to set your absolute cell references should you need to do that. So in this case, I need to set B3 and C3 as absolute cell references. So if I come to the formula bar, I'm going to select C3 and make that an absolute reference, in my case by pressing F4 on the keyboard. And I'll do the same for B3, just select that, press F4, and that makes that an absolute reference. I can click on the tick to confirm the changes and just copy that formula down now, or the function. And there we are. We see at the moment that Fred is the best price everywhere at the moment, but let's say he changes the price of his basic tent to $4.75, and there you see ABC Holidays has now the best price on the tents. And finally, one limitation of the if function, in this particular example at least, is what will happen if both suppliers have the same price. So let's say that ABC Holidays decides to price his tents at $4.75 as well. What we get is a misleading result really, because it says that Fred's Adventure Holidays has the best price, but that's not strictly true. It has a good price, but not the best price, because it's exactly the same as the other supplier. So we need some way of indicating that both prices are the same, and we'll look at solving that particular problem in the next tutorial. So that completes this first look at the if function. I hope you found it helpful and you can maybe apply it to the spreadsheets that you're working on. But in the meantime, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.